I can't quit yet. Those 4 words have carried me through every moment when the world said stop, when the odds whispered impossible, and when fear announced enough. But here's the truth. The gap between where you stand and where you're meant to be is bridged not by talent, not by luck, but by the courage to say, not yet. I'm not done. Today isn't about celebrating resilience. Today is about confronting the brutal truth that most dreams die, not because they were unachievable, but because we surrender 5 minutes before the breakthrough. This is a call to every person who feels exhausted, overlooked, underestimated, or one step from giving up. This is your reminder that your story is still being written, and quitting now would erase the chapter you fought so hard to reach. So, take a breath. Stand tall, because the next move you make might be the one that changes everything. And that's exactly why you can't quit yet. The reason we begin shapes everything that comes after, because men don't endure struggle for tasks. They endure it for meaning. When a man knows why he's moving forward, he becomes almost unstoppable. But when the purpose behind his steps is unclear, even the smallest obstacle feels like a wall. Men are wired to seek direction, to know that their fight serves something larger than pride or pressure. Without that anchor, discipline weakens, confidence fractures, and quitting starts to look like relief instead of regret. The truth is that women often see this before men do, because they notice the shift in energy when a man is connected to his purpose versus when he's drifting. From a woman's perspective, a man who knows his why becomes grounded. He listens differently, carries himself differently, and shows up with a clarity that feels both safe and inspiring. When his purpose is missing, she feels the confusion long before he speaks it. She sees the quiet withdrawal, the tension, the unspoken frustration of a man who's trying to push forward without a guiding reason. The strength to say, I can't quit yet, is born from understanding why you started. And until that reason is owned, the journey always feels heavier than it should. Purpose is the force that keeps a man moving long after the spark of motivation has burned out, because motivation is emotional, but purpose is structural. A man can wake up motivated on Monday and defeated by Tuesday. But when he's driven by something deeper than mood or momentum, he pushes through the days when nothing feels inspiring. Men are wired to respond to direction, to know that their actions matter. And when that sense of meaning is present, fatigue becomes manageable and obstacles become part of the mission instead of reasons to stop. Women often recognize the presence of purpose in a man by the steadiness he brings into every part of his life. From a woman's perspective, a man fueled by purpose behaves like someone who's anchored. He doesn't chase quick highs because he's committed to long-term meaning. She can feel the difference between a man driven by motivation, who is inconsistent and easily discouraged, and a man driven by purpose, who remains grounded even when life becomes overwhelming. She sees how his energy shifts when he's connected to something bigger than himself, and how he carries responsibility not as a burden, but as a calling. Purpose is what reminds a man that he can't quit yet, even when every part of him is tired. The greatest cost of quitting too soon is rarely the failure itself. It's the quiet realization that a man walked away from a version of himself he never allowed to exist. Men feel this more deeply than they admit, because quitting creates an internal echo, a lingering sense that they surrendered not to the challenge, but to the fear of staying in the fight. That unspoken regret becomes a weight they carry, often hidden behind confidence, humor, or distraction. And even though no one else may see it, he feels the gap between who he is and who he could have been. Women sense this silent cost in ways that men often overlook, because they observe the shifts in his spirit long before he verbalizes them. From a woman's perspective, quitting too soon drains a man's presence. His eyes lose a bit of their hunger. His decisions become more cautious, and he moves with the hesitation of someone who doesn't fully trust himself anymore. She recognizes the difference between a man who is tired and a man who is discouraged, and she knows when he's carrying a disappointment he hasn't processed. She feels the unspoken tension of a man who wonders what might have happened if he had held on just a little longer. The power hidden in the hard moments is the strength a man discovers only when life forces him past the limits he thought he had. Men often believe toughness is about showing no weakness, but the truth is that the hardest moments reveal capacities they didn't know existed. When a man is pushed to the edge, physically, emotionally, or spiritually, he encounters a version of himself that comfort would never have introduced him to. It's in these moments that resilience is built, identity is clarified, and the conviction behind "I can't quit yet" becomes real instead of theoretical. Women see this transformation from a uniquely intuitive place because they often feel the emotional shift long before the man recognizes it himself. From a woman's perspective, a man in the middle of a hard moment, T is standing at the doorway of growth, even if he's too overwhelmed to notice. She can see when he's stretching into deeper patience, stronger discipline, or a more grounded presence. She witnesses how adversity slowly reshapes him, how he becomes more intentional, more self-aware, and more anchored in who he is becoming. She recognizes that the struggle he despises is often the very process refining him into the man he's meant to be. The breakthrough a man is searching for often sits just one decision beyond the moment he's most tempted to give up. Men are conditioned to push, to perform, to be strong. But they're rarely taught that the final stretch before a breakthrough is usually the darkest and most discouraging. That moment when progress feels invisible, when effort feels wasted, when doubts feel louder than belief, that is the border between who he has been and who he could become. When a man says "not yet," he isn't just refusing to quit. He's signaling that he's willing to cross that border, even when the outcome isn't guaranteed. Women understand the significance of this turning point because they watch how a man's spirit shifts when he chooses persistence over resignation. From a woman's perspective, a man on the edge of a breakthrough looks different, not because he feels confident, but because he's refusing to step back from the edge. She sees the internal tug of war between his desire to escape the pressure and his deeper desire to grow into the man he knows he can be. She notices how his eyes narrow with determination, how his voice grows steadier, and how he stands just a little taller when he chooses not to fold. The truth is that breakthroughs rarely announce themselves in advance. They hide behind the discouragement that tries to push a man off course. And when a woman witnesses a man hold the line, when he says "not yet," even while shaking, she sees the quiet birth of a new strength. Finish lines aren't found because the destinations men dream of rarely exist until they decide to build them through consistency, discipline, and an unwillingness to walk away. Men are often taught to measure success by where others have already been, but the truth is that the path they're meant to walk is usually one no one has mapped out. A man's greatest progress comes the moment he realizes he isn't chasing a finish line. He's crafting one with every difficult choice, every early morning, every setback he refuses to let define him. This shift changes everything, because once a man understands that outcomes aren't discovered but constructed, quitting stops feeling like an option and starts feeling like a betrayal of who he's becoming. Women recognize this creative aspect of a man's journey because they often see the invisible work he doesn't acknowledge from a woman's perspective. A man building his finish line looks like someone slowly assembling a future through his habits, his focus, and his refusal to settle for shortcuts. She sees the effort he minimizes, the progress he overlooks, and the courage he uses to hold himself together on days when doubt feels heavier than purpose. She watches the pieces come together long before he admits they're forming a picture. The challenge for men is that self-built finish lines require a level of patience that feels unnatural, especially when the rewards take longer to appear than the struggles. Women sense the tension this creates because they can feel when a man is questioning whether his effort matters. They see the restlessness, the uncertainty, the moments where he wonders if he's fooling himself by pushing forward. Yet they also see the quiet victories, a decision made with integrity, a temptation resisted, a setback overcome that slowly shape the finish line he can't yet see. The truth is that finish lines emerge for the man who keeps showing up long after the applause fades, long after motivation evaporates, and long after comfort disappears.